Hello there, guys. I'm here with David Shayler. The only thing is I've got Shayler, who has decided to come and say hello to me, and Elijah is entertained. So, and also we are under very, very, very weak signal. But David's here, and he's going to teach you something and talk to you about something that I am not an expert in. It is not my field, and it was the one piece of information that, had I had taken notes, recorded, gone home, studied, I believe, and David will tell me whether or not this is yes or no, I believe I would have got my kids back. And I feel it's very important that you have this information while we have the opportunity to get this information from David. And also, on the submission date, I said to you, all get ready to go in and edit your documents as an affidavit. And here is the information. I'm going to flick over and I'm going to introduce you to David, and you're going to hear me slightly from behind. So I'm going to give David my headphones and just get him to put these on, so you'll hear me in the background, but David, don't have to hear them, just put them around your neck. Microphone.
All right, okay.
I'm not a pro, so here you go. Mr. David Shayler. Hello there, David. How are we doing?
Good, very good. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your live broadcast.
So it's been a long time. When was the first time we spoke? 2013, July, wouldn't it? It was my first ever Halt the Adoption Drive month that I met you, and you told me how to get my children back. And it wasn't that I didn't listen, I didn't understand. Just like the process where my children were taken, I didn't understand. And just as much as the problem, I didn't understand the solution either. So why do you feel that this information is so important?
Well, the solution to everything is law. And what people have to get out of their heads is what they've been indoctrinated with is law. People have been told things like acts of parliament and judicial rulings are law. They're not. They come into the legal system. They're part of policy, not law. Law says love your neighbour as you love yourself, or do as you would be done by. So you don't murder people because you don't want to be murdered. You don't steal off people because you don't want to be stolen off. You don't discriminate against people because you don't want to be discriminated against. That's how that works in principle. Now, from that law have come a series of principles well tried and practiced throughout the ages. They're known as the principles of law, the central truths of the law. And the key to this is that this is recognised as a higher law within their system through things like, for example, the oath, the coronation oath of the Queen. She swears an oath to law and justice, not to the legal system, basically. So she is there to implement the law, the common law, the natural law, basically, you love your neighbour. But this also comes up in their law in Magna Carta, the clause that says no man shall be disseized of his goods or taken or tried except according to the law of the land by the lawful judgment of his peers. And again, the law of the land, the principle of law, says the law of the land and the law of God are as one, and that is love your neighbour as you love yourself. That's also in the Jewish Talmud, the book of learnings based on the Jewish holy book, the Torah. So it's all written down in their law. Yeah, there's even a piece of case law called Donahue versus Stevenson, in which it is established that the love your neighbour principle comes above contract law. In a relationship with government or anything else, it's a form of contract. So you can go away from those contracts, all those statutes, those acts of parliament and so on, and say they don't apply to me. I'm a real human being, I'm not a person, I'm not a legal fiction, as this is known. So how you actually implement this law is the important thing. And what I've discovered is the best way to do that is through affidavits. Now this is where you swear to something under oath.
So before we get to affidavits, and you being David Shayler, of course, then, I've just got Shiloh entering the room, and no childcare.
For it is written until Shiloh comes.
It is written before Shiloh comes. So Shiloh has arrived. So here we go, guys. Now, one thing that's very... I'm just going to flick you over just to talk to me a minute before David gives you this information. What people have got to be very careful about is there's a lot of people who are laymen, and they, including myself, have done this psychology degree, and you run with something you know without having the bigger picture and understanding things. Now, one of the reasons that I don't bring many people onto my lives is because you have to pick holes in people. It's true to do so. You know, why would I ask anybody to do something that's so big if I didn't trust where the information was coming from? So I'm going to point you back to David, and I'm going to ask David to just explain who David is and why he knows the law and why he knows this stuff, because it's not about law degrees, it's not about this stuff. Sometimes we can have bigger understandings, and why I feel that you should trust David. As a mother, I'm going to follow David's advice, and I'm going to tell you when you see the pictures of my family returned. So if you don't choose to follow this and flip this over to help us get this into an inquiry, David's going to explain why an affidavit is the most important thing to hold people accountable, and that's what we're asking to do. So this is for people who, you know, have had their children unlawfully and unnecessarily detained. So Shayler has come, so we'll go back to David.
Yeah, let me say first as well, anything a solicitor says to you is to do with the legal system. A solicitor is specifically told not to tell you about the law. So that deals with that one. That's why your solicitor's not telling you about this. My experience in law is first-hand. I blew the whistle on MI6 funding Al-Qaeda in 1996 to try and assassinate Colonel Gaddafi. That operation went wrong and killed innocent people. I therefore resigned from MI5 and I blew the whistle. As a result of that, I was put on trial under the Official Secrets Act, but I had to conduct my own defence, and I therefore researched their law. And researching everything, and also having a background in a bit of constitutional studies of law at university, studied the French Constitution, the American Constitution. I then applied all that, looked at English constitutional law to put the Official Secrets Act into context, the Human Rights Act, all that kind of thing. So I researched all that stuff myself. The conclusion I came to at that time was the only law you needed was the one that says you can't cause harm to your fellow man. I didn't realise at the time that was the common law and a higher law. That was the only thing I didn't realise. That's why I lost my court case. But I got as far as that, as understanding that's what law was. There.
Hello guys, I'm back with you, and David is going to now explain. It just literally picked up, you can pick it up on the first interview, but now we're going to get focused. Why do you need to write an affidavit in this situation, David?
If you go to their courts, which are courts of equity, you're turning up there and they will argue that the very fact you've turned up means that you've consented to their summary judgment, basically, because you've turned up as a person, a legal fiction with no innate rights. So on the whole, avoid their courts because they're not courts of law. And this is where the affidavit comes in. When you know who your judge is, doesn't matter what court it is, he's a judge, he's a man under oath, basically. You send him an affidavit. Now I can obviously show people the bits of the affidavits that are on my site to use and things like that.
And we're back with David Shayler on point to point on what to put in an affidavit. Shayler's just with me, but we'll get this information.
Yeah,
and
so
affidavit's written up.
Your affidavit's a series of points, and you
I'll tell you what, guys, I'm going to leave David to tell you this face to face while I deal with Shayler.
Hello there. Yeah, basically what you've got to do with an affidavit is point by point, and the person you're serving on, the man who's serving on, in this case the judge, has to do what's called rebutting that affidavit. He has to come up with a better argument, better evidence for what you're saying. So in the case, obviously, of things like child protection, you want to be saying in your affidavit that you are the natural steward of the child because they're your natural biological child or whatever child. Obviously, the judge can't rebut that. You have the best interest of the child at heart. And it puts them on a footing where they have to actually come up with sworn evidence themselves. They can only rebut the affidavit by swearing something under oath. So if they say things that they've said before, allegations that are untrue, they bring that back in a sworn affidavit, they have broken the law, they have committed the offence of perjury, basically. But the affidavit process is, say you find the judge, find the court he's at, you can send it through the post, send it registered delivery so you know that it's got there, check that obviously, you can track it online. Once it's served, he has 10 days to respond. Now if he doesn't respond at all, of course, he's accepted all of the points in your affidavit to be in law. So that is what is known in their system as either stare decisis or res judicata. In other words, beyond judicial judgment. You've already made an agreement with him, he's accepted the agreement. So there's nothing he can rule on at all. So you've effectively, in law, snookered him. Now, this affidavit process has worked in the past. We have also had occasional problems with it, but otherwise it is tended to change the situation. And believe me, I've sent advice to people like Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning, saying to them, if you swear an affidavit, it can change your situation, and both their situations did change. Obviously not ultimately for Assange. It looks like the British have tried to ignore the affidavit, although that may be another story. Anyway, so you do it through affidavits. Obviously after 10 days, I've got to remind you, the process. After 10 days, you've got to serve a thing on them to remind them that you've served the affidavit, and if they don't rebut it, it becomes set in stone in law. And then when they don't, if they don't respond to that, you send them a third thing, and that just confirms to them that that's set in stone in law. You've fulfilled your duties under the common law to create a situation in which you put a truth in, they haven't rebutted it, basically. In terms of the affidavit itself, you have to swear that, but you can swear an affidavit before two witnesses. They have to put their names and addresses on it, obviously. They're not swearing to what you're saying is true, they're just swearing to the fact that they've witnessed you